A very warm welcome, Camelia, and thank you so much for joining in for our campaign. And we eagerly wanted to connect with you. We have been following your nonprofit's work in the recent past, and we really like it. And that is why we wanted to connect with you for this cause. And thank you so much for joining in. For today's campaign, I'll be your host. I am Pratham Kashyap, and with me, I also have Digdarshika Thakuria with me. And so, without further ado, I'd quickly like to ask, please introduce yourself, Camelia, and your organization as well, to start with.
Okay. Hello, and first of all, thank you for this opportunity. It's really a pleasure to be in this dialogue. My name is Camelia Proca, and 17 years ago, together with other Romanian women, I founded an organization to tackle the issue of gender inequality. In our region, there was very little civic activism on this topic. There was little discussion about women's rights, and gender equality was still a very unknown concept. So we founded the Association for Liberty and Equality of Gender, in brief A.L.E.G, which stands for I Choose in Romanian, in order to promote equal rights, to show the benefits for both women and men, for communities, for schools, for the entire society, and also to provide services for survivors of violence. And this is what we have been doing in the last 17 years. We have expanded services that help women overcome domestic violence. We also provide support on the issue of sexual violence and sexual harassment. But at the same time, we put a lot of effort on prevention and education for gender equality, especially working with young people and with schools and teachers.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Camelia. And starting with my very first question, I think a nonprofit like yours, working for 17 years against gender-based violences against women. So I would like to understand from you that what is exactly the significance of this day that we're celebrating, the International Women's Day, and how do we see it?
Well, the history of this celebration goes back to the beginning of the 20th century, and it's very much connected with the world of labor, because women at that time did not have the equal rights to participation on the labor market as they have today. And this was the primary focus of the women's conferences at that time. But basically, this celebration, this day aims to emphasize all the accomplishments of women in different fields. Today, we are not only focused on labor and women's participation on the labor market, but we are also discussing about other issues affecting women's lives, including violence against women, political representation, equal share of responsibilities in the family, sexual and reproductive health and rights. And these are just to name a few of the areas of interest. This particular year, the 8th of March, is embracing the vision of break the bias. This is the slogan that has been proposed, and we feel that it is really speaking to reality that we also face every day. bias is part of our lives, and it is something that we need to work with. It's not impossible to live in a world that overcomes bias. Although at the same time, we can say that there are no people completely bias-free because of the way we are raised, and stereotypes are still part of the education in many ways, both in the family but also in the larger society. What I think is very important is to become aware of this bias and to make a personal effort to go beyond, to expand our limitations and be more tolerant.
Wow, I think I totally agree with you on that, Camelia. Like you mentioned that no one in this world is completely bias free. But I think I connected with a couple of nonprofits who are working for this cause, and they also unanimously say that it's an issue when the gender differences convert into the gender discrimination, because gender differences are some things that are bound to happen, because different genders will have different things biologically, physically, and due to several other reasons. That is inevitable.
And socially, that's right.
Yes, and when those differences become a base of discrimination, that's when it becomes an issue. The bias becomes the issue. That's when. So I think that is very well captured by what you just said as well. So I'd also like to deep dive into how A.L.E.G works for this particular cause. Like, what are the different initiatives and how is A.L.E.G creating an impact in the society and in the lives of the beneficiaries they serve?
One of the areas that we are most active in is gender equality education for schools, and we are discussing and actually developing educational modules in which students have opportunities for experiential learning on understanding gender stereotypes, understanding what peer pressure has to do with bias, what is the what are the signs of discrimination and abuse, to be able to identify the situations that are infringing on their rights, and also what to do in such circumstances. And because we are a small organization and we cannot reach such a large group of students, we have focused our work on teachers to increase our impact, and we deliver trainings for teachers which go beyond the actual training experience. It goes into a mentorship process. They are piloting the educational materials that we have elaborated together, and we help sometimes with team teaching, with feedback after class observation, with new material and new content for the teachers. So we have an ongoing cooperation that really helps the teachers make a difference in the schools, and they come back and tell us about the outcomes and the impact on the students, and it is quite a good impact. Many of the students say that they don't have the chance to discuss about these things in the family. In many families, it's something not discussed. And they also don't have other school subjects that really give them the opportunity to raise their concerns, to ask questions, to experience different. We work very much with role plays, with interactive means. So this is one area where we put a lot of effort into understanding the way we can relate to masculinity, femininity. Another area where we are dealing with bias, if I may continue, is related to the attitude towards survivors of domestic violence. This is very much related to victim blaming. There is a lot of public shaming involved. Very often, even by those institutions that are actually mandated to offer protection and intervention, such as the police, sometimes public social services. Women are faced with an unfriendly attitude, and they are questioned. Why did you accept? Why did you stay so long? Why didn't you leave earlier? They very much feel judged, and this is something that is re-traumatizing, and we are addressing this issue through training sessions with professionals, but also through a lot of advocacy work, raising awareness, addressing public letters, and advocating on behalf of the women who feel discriminated and victims of secondary forms of violence. Because in fact, this is another way of perpetrating structural violence against women.
Absolutely, and at the same time, I agree with you. But again, I'm really. It's really ridiculous when you hear that. I'm really overwhelmed with whatever you have to tell. And definitely the two areas that your organization is working in are one of the most key areas. One, definitely the education, which builds the entire base of the future of a girl, woman, or a child, without considering any gender in particular. And when talking about the gender-based violences, I think it's very, very important to discuss about them, to talk about them openly, and at least make all those women aware about their rights and what they should go ahead with and they should expect from the society as well. So thank you so much for pointing out all those things.
I wanted to add one aspect that has it's also part of our work, although we are still at the beginning phase. We want to address also men, because you cannot reach gender equality without the involvement of men. And there are many biases against men as well, both in relation to violence, but also in other aspects, the way they are relied upon as fathers, as partners. So we are trying to integrate in our work also a focus on healthy masculinity. We do have male psychologists that work with us, and the last edition of the Gender Equality Festival, which is a campaign we organize every year, has had this focus on working with men and creating alliances, showing the benefits of gender equality for men as well.
Wow, I think that's again one of the amazing things that you're doing. Also, Camelia, I'd like to take this topic a bit further. I'd like to talk about women going in the leadership roles and pursuing entrepreneurship in their lives. So we see comparatively, on a comparative scale, we see lesser women on the leadership positions and entrepreneurial roles as compared to men. So I'd like to understand from you as well that how can we encourage women to go pursue careers like these, because this is not something based on gender. This is completely based on your mentality and your vision and mission and your goals, personal goals. Absolutely. So I'd like to understand.
It has to do also with gender, and here is some of the things that we have been trying in this respect. One thing is promoting leadership among young women, girls. And here we actually had some really excellent results. We have a pool of about 300 volunteers that we work on, especially in public awareness and educational projects. Out of these volunteers, many are women, and they receive from us not only training on women's rights, history of feminism, but also opportunities for developing leadership skills, for traveling abroad, attending workshops and seminars on related topics. For example, we had a few of our volunteers attend the yearly conferences of Women Deliver. And one of the girls that we started collaborating, I think about 10 years ago, was elected a few months ago a board member of Women Deliver. She is also a part of A.L.E.G board and became recently the president of the organization, because we have an active pursuit of involving part of our target group in the governance of the organization. And we believe in putting in practice the values that we preach, the actual slogans that we promote related to female empowerment, girl leadership. We put it in practice in our own organization, and this is an example, and very often deeds speak louder than words. A second approach we have to supporting more women in leadership position is directed to creating support, as I was saying, from men, because women in the last 50 years have learned to do everything best. They have to be best daughters, best students, and many women, more women actually than men, graduate from universities. That's what the statistics of the European Commission are showing. But at the same time, the gap still remains when you look at positions in large companies, CEOs, and political parties, leadership. So something is missing, and it's not the training of the girls that is missing, which means that they need a more balanced life, private life, so that they can take on public positions. And we advocate for this also in our educational campaigns. An equal partnership in the family, in the household, will have the effect of more women having time and energy for fulfilling professional roles and leadership positions. I was talking recently to a Romanian feminist who was pointing something quite interesting to me. It's not only time that is the resource. Yeah, when the whole burden of a family and household is on your shoulders, you have this in your mind at all times. This is something that is taking up your potential, your thoughts, your investing energy, not only the hours, yeah, not only the time is ticking, but also all your being is directed in this. And it's important to realize these aspects and to create partnerships in which men are not just helping their wives, but they realize that they have that it's just as natural for somebody living in a household to be doing tasks and taking care of and having on their minds things related to cooking and taking care of yourselves, so that in the end we all can enrich our lives and diversify the interests that we can cover in life.
Definitely. Thank you so much for putting that up. And I had one follow-up question from what you were saying, but I think later you so wholesomely answered the entire question of mine that it cleared all my doubts. Now I think my colleague Digdarshika has a couple of questions to ask from you. Digdarshika?
Yes. As you were saying, like right now the time is such that that we have women who speak up for themselves, but we also have some women who they don't know how to express themselves when they are facing some violence or anything unequal. So what do you think, according to you, what is the most important message that you want to give to the young women all around the world regarding this?
I think for young women, my message is trust yourselves and dare to have big dreams. We have a program in A.L.E.G called I Can Do It Too, and it is based on peer-to-peer support. And I do believe that it's very important for young women to have role models in other women who have managed to overcome adversity, to gain independence after being in abusive relationships. And we make these stories public. We have a network of survivors across Romania who are not only speaking about how they succeeded to overcome abuse, but they are also interacting in closed groups on social media. They are also meeting face-to-face in local support groups. And we noticed that beyond the messages that we as women's rights activists put out there for young women and women facing violence, it is very, very powerful to hear a message coming from a peer, a woman that has just recovered from a difficult situation. This is really empowering, and I think my encouragement is to go out and look for these examples, make them visible, because power comes also from sisterhood. And I think this is a value that we need to build up in all the countries.
Great. That was very empowering. And whatever the community that you have started, it is very empowering. You know, I can feel the girl power, the sisterhood vibe from it. So I wanted to know, like, if anyone want to work for this cause, how would he or she can be associated with your organization or with your cause? How can he do that? Like, now we are sitting in all over the place, like we are here in India and you are there. So how can one get connected with this cause via your organization?
We have learned very much in the last 2 years that the physical boundaries between us are quite fragile. Our organization has started, for example, support groups that happen online, and we have members that are living maybe 500 kilometers away from each other, and they meet online, and they have these psychoeducational groups that are led by a team of survivor and psychologists. So one possibility is to contact us for such online group work. On the other hand, we have quite an international activism when it comes to building campaigns. We partner, for example, with Women Against Violence Europe, and they have a campaign called Step Up. We recruit youth ambassadors from different countries and create new strategies of bringing women's rights closer to the life of young people. So one way to get involved with us is through public campaign initiatives, because we very much believe in connecting with people from other countries, other continents, and learning from each other. One of the funders of the organizations that have been supporting our activity is Global Fund for Children, and they have grantees all over the world. 2 years ago, at the beginning of the pandemic, Global Fund for Children established a CEO circle, and the leaders of about 10-15 organizations, we meet every month and share challenges that we are facing. We are learning from each other. We have specific topics that we address every month, and we're also planning things together. So I am very open to learning about other NGOs out there active in their communities. How are you facing gender inequality, and what are you doing about it? I would like to hear about it, and maybe we can find better solutions together.